Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spellbound, A Darker Shade of Black. Get your copy today at your favorite online bookseller. I recently heard about the plan for Ebony magazine to shut down its offices in Chicago and move to California. And when I heard that news, I was deeply disappointed. As a publisher myself, I know once a magazine pretty much shuts down its operations in its initial city and moves to California, I know it's the beginning of the end for that magazine. Yes, Ebony magazine may continue to publish, but the mission and principles and core values of John H. Johnson are pretty much going to be lost as that publication continues to operate. And as we look at Ebony magazine over the last couple of years, the mission and plans of John H. Johnson have been pretty much lost. But when something goes all the way to California, that's when it's going to be completely gone. Because once you move away from the initial city where the publication started, you pretty much move away from the base that gave you the platform to stand on. Now, the platform for Ebony magazine, established in the 1940s by John H. Johnson, was to present a positive image of African Americans and to tell stories about African American culture that weren't being reported in the mainstream media. And when we think about Ebony magazine moving from Chicago all the way to California, all they're doing is moving towards the mainstream media. And that pretty much compromises the initial mission of Ebony magazine and the initial mission of Johnson Publications, which was designed to present a counterpoint to the mainstream media and how black people were being portrayed in mainstream media. How can Ebony magazine maintain its mission and core values as a publication if it is going to the place to be a part of the Hollywood machine? This is something many people don't think about as it relates to media and the image of black people, nor do they think about how this move of Ebony magazine from its Chicago base to California is going to be destructive to black people in the long term. Because as I've said in many videos, those who control the media control the narrative for the black community. And when you have the money and the media of the black community being controlled by people who are supportive of white liberals, then you have a problem in the black community, because we are not getting the stories told about the black community from Ebony magazine. No, we are getting stories and viewpoints from the view of white liberals told to us by Ebony magazine, and being told that this is black experience and black culture, and we're getting the black culture and the black experience through a white lens. And that's how your Ebony magazine has been compromised, just like Essence magazine was compromised when it was bought by Warner Brothers, and a white man was placed in charge as editor-in-chief of Essence magazine. Both of these magazines have been compromised. Both of these magazines' missions have been pretty much drastically changed from the initial mission that John H. Johnson and Gordon Parks established for both, and both of them were originally designed to present a counterpoint to mainstream media. When you see them being bought by mainstream media and then moving towards the places where mainstream media is, that is destructive for the black media, because that means we are not getting pure black media from black people. We are getting black media as dictated to us by white liberals. And when you get your black media dictated to you by white liberals, this is how you get narratives that are pretty much dysfunctional and destructive to black people presented to us. This is how we get narratives presented in magazines like Ebony magazine that promote things like white feminism and things like homosexuality in the black community as social norms. And when it came down to this, again, this is not what Ebony magazine was about. Ebony magazine was about presenting a positive image of black people and presenting a balanced image of black people in its pages. It was about telling stories about the black experience that you could not get in mainstream magazines. And sadly, Ebony magazine has gone so far away from its mission that it is completely lost as a publication. And this is what the big problem is with your Ebony magazine. The owners of Ebony magazine believe that moving this magazine to California will help alleviate the problem, but all it's going to do is worsen the problem, because the problem with Ebony magazine is not the moving The problem is in between the pages then that they have no substance. And I find it very funny that this Ebony magazine, which is struggling to get sales, has enough money to move to California. Now, this reminds me of something I saw with DC Comics a couple of years ago when they said, oh, we have to move to California in order to pretty much synchronize our operations of our publications with our animation division and our film division. Unfortunately, that move for DC Comics from New York City to California has not helped their publications increase in sales or increase their readership. All it has done is solidify pushing the same narrative that Dan Dido wanted to push regarding DC Comics, and that narrative in and of itself is dysfunctional. And that's what I see coming to your Ebony magazine, a continuation of this dysfunctional black feminist narrative and a continuation of this black lesbian narrative, and that's not what this magazine, again, was all about. What Ebony magazine really needed was to stay in Chicago, get back in touch with its roots, get back in touch with its culture, and get back in touch with its writers. The same writers that Ebony magazine said they didn't have enough money to pay for, yet they had enough money to pay to move to California. And again, that seems suspicious to me because when I look at that action, it shows me that this is all about controlling a narrative in black media, and this is what is more dangerous than anything else, because if your narrative in media is being controlled by feminists and liberals, that means we are not getting the stories about black people being told. And when we're not getting those stories being told, again, that pretty much compromises the original mission of John H. Johnson. John H. Johnson created Ebony magazine to pretty much present those stories about black life and black culture that weren't being told in the mainstream media, and tell those stories about our experience from our words and our terms. And that's what's going to be lost with this Ebony magazine moving to California. As it stands right now, as I see it, this Ebony magazine is pretty much dead, but it's like a zombie. It's walking around with the name Ebony, but there's nothing Ebony about this because there's nothing about the black experience in the pages of this Ebony magazine. All we're getting is what somebody is telling us is black, and that's not the black experience. I would myself, again, would have to agree with many others and say I would rather see Ebony die than be this compromised zombie pretty much presenting this propaganda to people and presenting these dysfunctional ideas to people, because that's not what John H. Johnson stood for, that's not what Gordon Parks stood for, and to see their magazines being used as propaganda pieces, it pretty much slaps them in the face and pretty much destroys their legacy. And what's really sad about it is that I'm not seeing many other publishers coming up to take Ebony's place or trying to make efforts to try to reach those readers, because when it comes down to publications, we really need more publishers out there. And this is one of the reasons why I go out of my way to publish the SJS Direct Publishing imprint, because I understand that controlling the media is very important, and controlling the narrative of media is very important, especially during these days when we're in the middle of the almost 21st year of this telecommunications bill that Bill Clinton passed in 1996, which allowed people to own more than one television station and one newspaper. And this consolidation of media is one of the most dangerous things, because if corporations are allowed to control the media with their money, they will control the narrative. And when they do that, you have racists at the top, what they're going to do is perpetuate stereotypes about black people, not humanize us in the way an independent publisher like John H. Johnson or myself would, and try to present those different stories about the black culture and the black experience. And this is why it's important for us to have independent media out here and independent media owners, because they are going to present viewpoints that are different, and it's those different viewpoints that allow us to see a clearer and more balanced picture of black culture and the black experience. When I look at Ebony magazine moving out to California, it's very scary, because that means that Ebony magazine and Johnson Publications are now part of the Hollywood machine and part of Big Six Media. And if they're a part of Big Six Media, that means we are not getting an independent view of black people. We're not getting a balanced view of black people. we're not getting a humanized view of black people. Instead, we are getting a view of black people through the eyes of white liberals, black feminists, and other people, and not ourselves. And that's what black media was supposed to be all about. Us telling our stories, us sharing our experiences, and us presenting our culture as we see it. And this is something that is being lost on many people because they don't understand why it is important for us to control our image, why it is important for us to control our media, and why is it important for us to tell our stories. Because when you go to the white liberal, you're only going to get one or two types of stories, and those are stories that pretty much fit his narrative and fit his agenda. You're not going to get a balanced picture. And I look at the picture of black media, and it's becoming more and more slanted because small independent companies, they just don't have the money to fight back or go out here and promote like they should. Companies like mine, they're pretty much small and independent, and it's very hard for us to go out here and present those stories because we don't have the advertising, we don't have the marketing, we don't have the promotions. And these guys have big machines that can promote media to people and present them images of black people, and they'll pretty much accept them as the norm because there is a white liberal standing next to that black person. And whenever a spellbound Negro sees a white liberal standing next to them, they will pretty much automatically believe that that black person is presenting something that is in their best interest. And when I look at your Ebony magazine, this magazine was something that could have been saved by us. And all it needed was an editor like myself with the vision to see how to take this magazine into a new direction. Now, when I look at Ebony magazine, I see a magazine that really has lost its focus and lost its perspective all the way back in the late 80s. And I've said this before in numerous videos. And the magazine desperately needed substance then, and it desperately needs substance now. And I think that's what would have saved Ebony magazine. And I think any magazine out here, it really needs substance. Because when I look at Ebony magazine, as I said in the previous videos, compared to magazines like GQ or Playboy or Family Circle, there really wasn't much substance to it. And if you really want to present a positive picture of black people, you have to present a broader picture of black culture, and we really didn't get to see that in Ebony magazine. No, like today, we see a narrower picture, and I see that vision getting more and more narrower with this move to California, because once a publication moves to California, these guys are going to take it Hollywood, and once they take it Hollywood, we're going to get a narrative dictated to black people by white liberals, not a story told from our perspective. And if a story is not told from our perspective, that's dangerous for black people because we are seeing black through the white lens, not black through the black lens. I look at this move to California for Ebony as a bad thing, and I really look at it as something very dangerous for black people. And this is one of the core reasons why black people have to go out of their way to support independent publishers like myself, because that's the only way these days, I believe, people are going to get stories about the black experience that are fair, balanced, and present us in a humanized way. You can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box, and you can pick up many of the SJS Direct titles by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.